Hi, my name is S02xE02, and welcome to In Frame.
Live from Black Lodge Video in Memphis, Tennessee, In Frame, with special guest Keith Goff, featuring Alex Mazar. And your hosts, J. Lazarus Hawk and Jamie Hall. Hello, I'm J. Lazarus Hawk. Welcome to In Frame. This week, joining me, in addition to my co-host Jamie Hall, will be Alex Mazar. Bear with us for just a moment. We've missed some cues. Come on in, gentlemen.
Oh God.
Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thank you very much. We're outside getting our nicotine fix real quick.
I'm late and I'm proud of it.
Good.
My partner, Jamie Hall. Prompt, as always.
Yes.
All right, well, Alex.
Yep.
I've worked with you for almost 2 years now.
Yeah, it's been about
Off
2
and
years.
on as a coach. I've had you on sets. We have you in class, in our group class and things like that. And today was going to be one of
good day. It
one
was
of the
supposed to
first
be a good day.
opportunities that you would have had to work with Dan Baker.
Yeah, it would.
And as many actors have to face,
yeah,
extenuating circumstances presented themselves, and you were
Yeah.
unable to do that. So tell us a
sucked.
little bit about how.
So
that
basically, Dan Baker, I saw something on Facebook that he was going to do. He was going to do a film. It was going to be a book trailer for this film called Angels Are. I think it's called, what was it? Angels Are Fair or something? What was it?
Do you remember the title?
Angels Are Something. I don't remember the last part of it.
This was a independently published book,
It's
right?
it's an independently published book. Dan and them were shooting the
A
part of the
promotional
promo trailer to see if everything was going to work
Yeah,
out.
the director was Dan's wife, Rachel and Taylor, who I think directed Adverse.
That's actually his partner.
That's
not
his
wife.
partner.
Oh, is that
yeah,
it?
That's
Oh,
his
okay.
partner.
I was
She
confused
was
on
the
that.
director of Avarice.
Avarice,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he posted something on Facebook, and I said, okay, it was one of the last minute things. It was Friday that I sent him my headshot and my resume. I said, I'm interested in doing it if you have a part for me. So I emailed him my headshot, my resume. He's like, okay. Got with me back the next day and said, okay, it's between you and this other person. And I said, okay. He said, I'll let you know tomorrow morning if you got the part. He sent me a message on Facebook. He's like, you got the part. I'm like, cool. And I was on the phone with his wardrobe person, Sarah, and we were just kind of going over a few things about what I needed to bring and everything for today. So I said, that's great. He sent me the script, and it was going to be fun because I've heard good things about Dan Baker.
He's a fantastic
Great.
person.
And
But
so
I was on the set. I was an extra today and went out and helped Dan set up. And it was the first time I'd ever got to see Dan working. And Dan's such a, he's just
He's a
here
sharp
and there.
man, yeah.
He's sharp. He really is sharp. And it was a lot of fun out there today.
Yeah.
I mean, they got everybody taken care of. And I heard it was a pretty lengthy day, though.
Yeah.
Now, in my experience, I know you to be not only prompt, but very quick to communicate if there is any delay problems or reasons that you would be unable or, some reason be late to any kind of a location or a set.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a call this afternoon, or late this morning, that said you were an hour late.
Yeah.
And I immediately was like, okay, this is not like Alex.
Yeah.
So I called you myself because I figured, maybe not knowing Dan, maybe you didn't recognize the phone number.
Mm-hmm.
Our 2-year relationship, surely you'd answer your phone.
Yeah.
And you did not.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course I started thinking, this is unlike Alex.
Yeah.
What has happened?
I always answer my phone.
So, what happened?
So basically, this morning I was supposed to be in wardrobe and makeup at 10 o'clock was the time I was supposed to be in wardrobe and makeup. So I was going to get there at 9 o'clock, get everything, get to know everybody so I could figure out the rhythm of what was going to go on that day. So I got there. I was about 5 o'clock. My dad's in town. He lives in Toronto. He was going to be in town until this Wednesday. So this morning we were running errands, getting everything done. I said, I need to be out of here I need to get home at 8, get ready, get everything I need to do, and need to be there by 9. So anyway, we were driving around. I live in Eads. There's a highway, Highway 64, and there's a hill, okay? There's a hill. It's a very tall hill. You can't see anybody going over the hill. So we were going to go back, because on the road we had to turn back so that I could go home. That's where the road that I lived on. I was on the other side of the highway. And we were turning, and so you can't see anybody going over this hill. And my dad was driving, and I was in the passenger seat, and this car, barreling at probably 85 miles an hour, I think that's what the cop said, 85 miles an hour, came out, and I was like, okay, you're good to go. And I was in the passenger seat, and all of a sudden he starts turning, and I see this car coming like fast. It was just like, and I got into a car accident. And then all the thing I heard was the and this,
right.
car, slamming on the brakes.
Did it hit your side of the car?
It hit my passenger side of the car. So anyway, I saw this thing, all of a sudden, crash, yada, 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 and I was like, shit, I'm going to be late on the fucking set that I need to be work with Dan Baker. That's the first thing I thought of, was shit, I'm going to be late. So we pull over, and, we call the cops and everything, and, we got it worked out, and I was like, I'm fine, I just need to fucking get home, take me home. I talked to them.
Obviously, you've gone to the hospital, your day is shot, you don't make it to the set.
Yeah.
As an actor, how does that make you feel?
It was extremely frustrating because of the reputation that the person I was going to be working with. I really, really wanted to work with Dan Baker because I heard so many good things about him. I'd done my research about him, and this was my chance to work with freaking Dan Baker.
Well, the good thing about Dan Baker is, among all the other fabulous things we could say about him, is he's going to be a very understanding man.
He is. He was really worried.
And I was going to say his first concern would be whether or not you were all right.
Yeah, the first thing that he had said to me this morning when we both got to the set is he had told me about what happened to you. My first reaction was I picked up the phone and called.
Is he dead?
Yeah, and but he was concerned. He was concerned, and he said that he was sorry that it had happened to you and everything like that. He was hoping everything was okay. It can be frustrating.
It was really frustrating.
I know that Dan had genuine concern,
Yeah.
as any director would.
Of course.
I mean, it happened to us on Nature of the Beast.
Mm-hmm.
When we did the trailer, one of my extras, the first day that we were shooting at the old High Point building, she had took somebody to go get something.
Yeah.
One of the extras took somebody to go get something, and she told her car.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
You
nice.
know.
And then Rachel also.
Yeah, Rachel.
Had a car accident during
Rachel
the
had
shooting of that.
had a car accident right after I think we did the church scene.
Mm-hmm.
She was involved in a car accident.
Well, anyway, I mean, I sent Dan a message, and I'm like, I am so sorry I couldn't make it to the set. It's very unprofessional of me not to make it. This is my situation. It's funny because when I was in the hospital, because the reason why I went to the hospital was, I was fine, but, you always want to make sure you go to the hospital after you get in a car accident because there might be something wrong with you. Well, I got out of the car, and I was like, I feel fine. I'm just a little shaken up. Let me just get over it, and I'll be fine. Drink some water. I'll go home and get ready to go. I started feeling numb on my left side of my body. I'm like, this isn't good. I thought it was just post-after crash shock.
Right.
And I was like, okay, maybe I need to go to the hospital now because this might be like crushed nerve or something like that. And I got to the hospital, and they're like, okay, we'll check you out, make sure you're okay, do some scans, yada, 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 x-rays. And I look at my watch, I look on my phone, and I was like, oh my God, I am about to be late. And the first thing I told the doctor that was taking care of me in the emergency room was like, I need to be on makeup and then to be in the set in like 30 minutes. Let me go. He's like, I can't let you go, dude, because we have to go make sure that everything's fine.
Yeah, once they've started all that process, you're shot.
And I was just like, I'm about to rip the IVs out of my arm and fucking leave the hospital because I need to be on set.
Well, I know, like I said, I know that Dan understands. I know Dan is that kind of a person.
Yeah.
Stuff happens. Car wrecks happen.
Yeah.
People get hurt. Relatives, issues with relatives and so forth and so on happen. And in this business, especially on the aspects that we're doing, we as directors understand things happen like that. Everyday life is going to happen. It's happened to us before. I'd have to go into work or something like that and have to miss something that was going on or something, to that nature.
Well, Grimjack took a couple of delays because work schedules got shifted up. Your injury came along, then the weather. So we've still got to get back to that. So anything can happen, and we all have to kind of understand, be malleable, and like I said in the first place, be understanding as to what other people might be going through.
Yeah.
I do commend you that the first thing you did, at the first opportunity, was that
let
you
Dan
reached
know
out and
that I
let
couldn't be
Dan
there.
know.
Yeah.
That was the
Because
first
a lot
thing.
of people would have just
Let it go,
lost
and
that.
I understand that mainly because I've worked with you guys, and I know I've talked to directors, and I know how they work. And if the schedule was messed up just the slightest bit, it throws everything off. So I was panicking in my mind, thinking, "Oh my God, I'm going to throw everybody off, and they're not going to be able to film myself." It was going through my head, so I was like, "Oh my God, I'm going to be like in shit trouble."
that moment where you feel like
I was
you
just
are
like,
that weak
after
link.
after I got out of the car, I was like, "Okay, I'm fine. Okay, my dad's fine. The car's totaled. That's good. Who cares about that? I'm fine. Okay." Oh shit, I'm late. I need to go. Oh God. Oh my God. They're gonna. Okay, makeup's not gonna be
Now,
done. The assistants are gonna be worried. And
throughout the whole experience, how long until you just resolved yourself?
I still haven't resolved myself, to be honest, because I was like, God, I really wanted to be on set. But after I let him know, that was the first thing, like you said, to let him know I couldn't be there so that they could work around what they needed to do to fix the schedule. But I mean, all day I was just like, God, man.
It's that feeling that you get. It's like, damn it, I wanted to do this really bad,
and the one time I did get to
one
do
opportunity you get,
it just got totaled,
Yeah.
But anyway,
there's always other ones out there.
Well, the most important thing, obviously, is you're okay.
Yeah, I was fine.
And Dan will continue to be making films in town for a while. He will give you another chance, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And especially because he will understand the circumstance.
Yeah.
But I want to go ahead and take a cutaway here. I want to look at a little bit of a scene that you did for me a year and a half, 2 years
God,
ago now.
What is this?
Ooh, the bag.
Oh my
it
God.
was a year ago.
A little over a year.
A little over
that
a year
was
ago.
a long time ago.
Wow, it has been a while.
That was a hot day, too.
This is from The Bag, Jason Perry's project that he wrote. And you played a coroner for me because I knew that in your real life you were doing...
I have a degree in biology, and also before that I was going to go to school to become a medical examiner. So I had previous training.
What was the class? It wasn't
It was forensic pathology. Well, forensic pathology is the study that you go to.
Okay.
But the class that I was going to, I knew some people and I had some connections that were going to help me kind of get in advance, so that when I took my MCAT and I got into medical school, that whole thing I would know a little bit more. So basically, it was kind of like somebody told me that I could sit in and learn more, while they were working type of thing. So.
Now, we were working one-on-one. I was a coach, you were a student, one-on-one acting situation. I learned a lot of this about you.
Yeah.
And you were informing me all of the different procedures and all of this.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I started reading Jason's script, I realized there was a lot of room for actors to bring in some personality.
Uh-huh.
Kind of like David Lynch likes to do in just about everything he makes, but especially Twin Peaks, where people were allowed to be a little bit over the top with who their personality was.
Right.
And I told you to ride with it. I put you in this position because I knew you had the background and you knew some of the lingo.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to see what you'd come up with. So I basically didn't coach you with any dialogue. I just gave you the basic script, which was, I think, 3 or 4 lines original.
Yeah.
And I let you go. So let's go ahead and take a little peek at the result of that moment.
Boy, that's just horrible.
Body is in full rigor mortis, placing the victim at approximately 12 hours of death. The body weight to mass index is approximately 175 to 200. Degloving has not yet occurred on the right hand, although degloving has taken occurrence and the PMI factor does not equal to the rigor mortis factor. Note that the degloving of the right hand is not a post-mortem artifact of misdiagnosis, but rather a rapid change in body temperature after immediate time of death. The pattern marks around the victim's neck indicate that the victim was decapitated in an almost execution-style manner. The spiral patterns around the clavicle indicate that the blade was very, very sharp. Note, the victim has a great pair of shoes.
So what we got here? Is it him?
Yeah, that's him all right.
What a shame.
It sure is. I go to see them.
Yeah, I was hoping we'd win state this year, but that backup quarterback sucks. What do you think, Pruitt?
His head's not in the game. And that's why Eric here throws touchdowns with every other toss.
Y'all talking about Michael Wilburn's boy, ain't you?
Of course we are. Have you ever seen him complete a pass more than 30 yards?
Not only that, the kid's got no mobility. The offensive line's gonna have to block a hell of a lot better. Well, that boy's gonna get killed.
Lord help us Friday night.
All right, that was a sneak peek at Jason Perry's The Bag, a scene with Alex in it that took us about 3 hours to shoot that whole scene, and that wasn't the whole scene there, but I think it was a 3.5 hour day for that, which was a pretty good experience. And
Yeah,
that
putting the gloves on was a fun experience because those things get so hot, and I had because he's a coroner, right? So he has to wear rubber
Right.
gloves because he was. But I don't know. It was pretty hot that day, I think.
And that was the first actual set that I had put you on as an actor.
Yeah.
We'd worked briefly. You did some minor stuff on Universal Remote
Yeah.
with Forrest
Forrest
Pruitt
Pruitt.
when I was working on that. A little bit of PA work, and I think you did a minor scene.
Yeah, I did like a cameo thing.
Yeah, like a little cameo spot. And from there, I started working with you one-on-one,
Yeah.
and we kept trying to find the right fit for you. And then Jason brought this script to me, and it was a great opportunity to reach out to a couple of different people that I wanted to really get a chance to do something with. Audrey, Candace McGowan at the time, because we were planning on doing further work on Happy Hour, which has for now fallen through, but it was an opportunity to take these people and work with them and really see what they could bring to something that I hadn't even written. Because that was another challenge for me, was to create a vision out of somebody else's writing, which you've done. You know how difficult that can be to look at someone else's words and kind of find your own vision in it. So that was an interesting challenge for me. And
It was a lot of fun. It was a really good set, and it went smooth too.
One thing we pride ourselves on is getting our sets well planned.
Yeah,
Most of the people that work with us know us as very efficient.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why I do enjoy being on set with you guys, is because when I get there, everybody knows their position, everybody knows what they need to do at that moment, and everybody goes and does their job. Because like you see in some sets, people don't know really what to do sometimes, and as an actor, you're sitting there and you're trying to think, okay, well, versus like independent sets versus professional sets is completely two different things. But at least on an independent set, in that matter,
You can still have professionalism on a set.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
And as this man, it's law and written in stone to him, and it should be to all of us. Pre-production.
yeah,
There is no substitute for planning ahead. And our sets reflect that.
Yeah,
And
and
hopefully people will think that the work that we put out reflects that planning as well.
that's why, like I said, I really enjoy being on set. And that day went really smooth, and I had a good time and everything. And there was no issues at all. There was no drama behind the camera, which it should be in front of the camera, But anyway, it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed doing it.
Excellent. And of course, you'll be doing some work with us in the future, as well as you're going to be taking on one of the producer roles
On
for
this show.
this very show to kind of take
Find
some
some
of the weight
people
off of Jamie and I because of just overwhelming schedules with everything that's happening. So we definitely appreciate that.
No, not a problem. I
as
really
you
wanted
know.
to do it.
And we hope that you'll stick around. We're going to be bringing Keith out here in just a moment, but hope that you'll stick around for that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, we'll be right back after this with Keith Goff.
My name is Alex. I wanted to be an actor, but then I got involved in the wrong crowd, the wrong people, made bad choices. I became a bad actor. But then I noticed Rising Fire Productions, and they made me the actor I am today. Since then, I've been able to get auditions and book roles. Thank you, Rising Fire.
If you see the signs of bad acting in yourself or someone you love, please don't wait until it is too late. Call Rising Fire for help today.
I love this girl, and the last thing I want is something bad to happen between us.
Don't encourage him. He can do.
Welcome back. Joining us now is Keith Goff. Welcome to the show, Keith.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I've known of you for maybe a year or two.
Yeah.
I remember hearing your name prior to Trey. But I guess Trey, the recent feature, which has now won, and I'm going to get this wrong, AOF?
AOF International Film Festival.
Okay, the AOF International Film Festival. It took home Best Feature.
Sure.
Well,
And
congratulations on that.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. Congratulations on that. That, as you said to us off camera earlier, that's opening doors for you.
Sure.
But I'd like to talk about a door that maybe wasn't related to that I think is a phenomenal step for you, which was HBO.
Yes.
Quarry. You were one of, actually I think you were the only individual present at the auditions not represented by a specific agency.
That's correct.
And you ended up landing
The body double.
body double for Logan Green.
Yes.
Never get his name right.
Logan Marshall Green.
Marshall Green. And I think the first thing you did was call Jamie. Because the two of you had just established a relationship on Nature of the Beast.
Well, we
shoot.
had met once before. Well, we had met him once before. Well, you wasn't there. You was running late.
Right.
Because you had came out to the first auditions that we ever had for Nature of the Beast,
Yes.
and tried audition for the security guard
Right.
with Crystal Johnson,
Yes.
and that's where we had met at. And I remember the phone call. I mean, you can hear the excitement in his voice, and it was like a kid that just opened up a Christmas present that he'd been looking for all year.
Well, I got a similar call not long after that,
Yeah.
and I do remember that even in the midst of all that, the right questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when Keith and I were talking, he had asked me, what do I do? What do I need to do? And I told him, I said, you're in law enforcement, so you know how a chain of command works. You have to take those steps. And being on a movie set's the same way. There's chains of commands. You don't want to, an actor doesn't want to go directly up to the director.
Right.
There's people that you have to take to go through that. And those are the things that me and you had discussed, how to keep your set etiquette together, who you needed to talk to if you had questions. And one of the biggest things that I told you to do was really pay attention to the character that you're going to be body double.
Right.
How was that relationship between you and him? Did you have much of a relationship with him? Did you get to talk to him a little bit on and off camera?
We did. At first, of course, as a A-list celebrity, they're kind of standoffish just to try to figure out who you are, but they want that relationship built, but they're kind of leery. So
Kind of makes sense.
yeah, so it was. Of course, I was on camera every time before he got on camera to set up the lighting, the camera shots, make sure everything was in focus, such as that. And so at first, when I would come off of set and see what's going on, we'd kind of high-five each other or just kind of speak to each other. And so we started building that rapport. And then a couple of days after that, we actually started having lunch together and actually started conversating. And that allowed me to build a good relationship with him, and it just went from there. And he is a outstanding, super nice guy.
Oh, that's good.
Now, I understand that you've actually managed to make quite a good impression on pretty much the whole production team.
Yes.
Which, let me say, doesn't surprise me any. But this is an actor on a local independent level in a very difficult market to get quality work, and you are doing all of the right things. You are handling yourself professionally, and by doing this, and respecting the chain of command, as I said, and by doing this, you have established a good relationship with the A-list celebrity that you're working as the double for. You've met the director personally, had conversations with him, John
Hillcoat, which recently did Lawless.
Lawless, and before that, Proposition, both films written by Nick Cave, who's, for me, one of my favorite musicians. So for you to be working with this director, for me, is just an added, go Keith.
And I have to say this, John Hillcoat was phenomenal to work with. Super nice guy, never got angry on the set, but he had a certain way he wanted things, and that's the way he expected it. And everybody respected that.
That's most directors. All directors, they have a vision of what they want, and a good director has that vision. He wants that vision, and he wants it laid out that way.
Well, the crew's job is to make that vision come to life, and the actor's job is to bring breath and reality to that vision. So, doing what you're doing, you've established these great relationships. How does it feel, and what do you see in the future? What kind of doors have been opening for you in this?
It took me several days, and of course I was fortunate enough, and God blessed me enough to be on the set every single day for 10, 12, 14 hours at a time.
Now, how long was the shoot for?
It was for 2.5 weeks. So I was fortunate enough to be on the set every single day in these people's face. So at first it was funny because they would say, hey, can you do this or can you do that? By the third or fourth day, they would say, hey, Keith, can you do this? So they would remember my name.
Starting to remember you.
Right.
And, that's
big.
important. And
It is. So working with him, you got to build a rapport with him. Did you get to speak with Hillcoat a lot, or any at all?
I got to speak with him some, but actually to have a sit-down conversation with him, I did not. Because other than him sitting down actually having lunch or dinner, he was always busy. And I never want to interfere with his mindset and his vision on what he wanted to create in that particular scene.
That's smart thinking.
That was one of the things that we had talked about.
Sure.
We talk about it to our class. We talk a lot about it with each other and so forth, about a really clean set etiquette. Because one of the worst things that you want to do when you come on, on any kind of set, an independent set or, a big set like that, you want to know where to go, who to talk to, and what the ins and the outs.
You want to make impressions,
you
not
do.
waves.
And that was one of the things that we had talked about. I said, there's a lot of times that you might be on the set and you might have to wait 3 or 4 hours before they even call you over.
Right.
And you'll have people sitting in the corner, griping and complaining about how long it's taking. And the first thing I told you was, step away from
Walk
those
away.
people.
Right.
Stay
And I
in
found
the neutral
myself
zone.
doing that because there was a couple of stand-ins at other times in different scenes that would come in, and they said, this should be done like this or this should be done like that. And so I'm thinking to myself, hey, nobody needs to hear him say that, so I kind of walk away and then I come back.
Because you never know.
I don't want to put myself in that situation or involved in that conversation and someone
you
overhears.
probably have already seen the results of that.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know how much can be said, should be said, or whatever, but there's a likelihood of you being able to continue working with them in the future.
Yes.
How many of those people that were complaining got that same likelihood?
Right. Yeah, the producer.
How many of those same people did they say, hey, by name,
Right.
can you do this?
Right. Yeah, and there again, I was so fortunate because toward the end of the second week, the actual producers and writers were coming up to me from HBO, giving me their personal cell phone numbers, their contact information, and say, hey, if this gets picked up, we want to stay in contact with you. This is what we're going to try to do for you and offer you. and we would talk about it later on. So they're really opening up to me, and that meant a lot to me.
So you're already seeing pretty much how the inside of the machine actually works.
And it is amazing on a big budget production set how everything operates.
And so that was going to be
unbelievable.
that was
like
going to
a
be my
clock.
question.
Yeah, unbelievable.
You've worked on several independent sets. Like you'd been on Trey.
Right.
After Trey, what'd you do after Trey?
Trey, then I did, let me see.
You did something with T.J. Cates.
Yeah, I
think-
did
yeah.
Missionaries Mansion with T.J. Cates. And then I worked with you on Nature of the Beast. And right there, I'm kind of in limbo right now, waiting on some more things to take off.
So, you know, with seeing big dollar budget, something like Quarry, and then seeing what you have to do on some of the independent sets.
Right.
Did you see a lot of things that the independent sets are doing that, you know, of course, independent sets don't have
To say
the
lack
funds,
of personnel,
the lack of personnel, the lack of funds,
Right.
the lack of being able to go, okay, we can be here all day if we have to.
Right.
Right.
Did you see some of the similar, some of the differences between?
You know, and I have looked back on that, and I said, is there really anything different? And Laz just hit the nail on the head when he said besides the personnel involved in it. Of course, on these big production sets, you have probably 20 or 30 people rushing into a set at one time, and it's funny because I tell my wife, I say, all you hear is sorry, because everybody's bumping into everyone.
It's like you in Canada.
Yeah. So you just stand.
That's a pun at you, Alex.
So you just stand there, and but other than that, I mean, everything's really the same as far as independent films and big budget films. Everything's basically
It's the same process.
Yeah.
So my advice to anyone that's never had the opportunity, and I hope that Quarry takes off, and I think it will, because it will allow so many more people around here to have that opportunity that God's blessed me with.
And that's something
I
we're
think
trying
it
to
will-
tell. You know, we've mentioned it to Alex, we've said something to Tarek, and a couple other people that have come
Right.
through our classes, is that
You
pay
never know
attention,
that
'cause
opportunity.
Yeah.
right now, just south of us, unfortunately, and it's
Yeah.
because our, Tennessee government's having
Right.
difficulties with what they're doing about incentives. But Mississippi isn't.
Right.
Mississippi has those incentives in place, and they're ready to give them out. And HBO jumped.
Yeah.
They wanted to come here, and the minute Tennessee said no, they're fine.
Right.
Right across the border, not 10 miles down
Yeah.
the road.
That's it.
We can be where we want to be. And that's bringing a lot of opportunity here.
Sure.
I don't know how closely they might relate to each other, but I know that Vampire Diaries, CW, was doing some local area casting
Right.
in just recent months as well. And then there was another production, which I don't even know the name of. Audrey
I've
also
heard,
got
yeah,
auditioned for
I
it.
remember Audrey had gotten an audition, but I
But,
don't know.
we've seen a couple of rare things happen, which is, someone like you at this level being given an opportunity like this so easily and so graciously because of how you handle yourself. And then Audrey is getting, her agent called her and said, I have requests that you come audition,
And
which is
Todd,
unheard of.
Bateman Underwood
And as who's
has
mentioned
recently, Bateman Underwood has recently auditioned, I believe, twice for Vampire Diaries.
Right.
So there are productions, there are quality productions, dollar productions in the region.
Right.
And if our actors as a whole don't really start thinking about themselves as a business, as a saleable commodity, they're and work on their professionalism, they're not going to get the work. And it really is, working with Jamie and I is one thing. Walking onto a set with John Hillcoat is a different animal. That man has the experience. He has the expectations. We're doing what we can. He's doing what he will.
Right.
And if you don't float with that, you're gone.
And the best advice I can give, and I've talked to you guys when I first landed it, and like you said, I was like a kid opening up a Christmas present. But I've been so fortunate because I am new to this, and I'm learning every day. But I seek out to you guys that has been in the industry because it all works the same. So I reached out to you guys, and I called Michael Crowin, I called TJ Cates, and just getting everybody's different opinion, you know, on how the different sets work. And I combined all of that knowledge into one, and it worked for me. The biggest thing that I kept getting complimented on was, I would say yes sir and no sir to these
Respect.
people.
Yeah.
And they would actually turn around, look at me and say, "What did you just say?" I said, "Yes sir." They said, "We never hear that from anyone."
Well, number one, it's
Never.
a Southern thing.
Yes.
We're all
It-
taught.
it
We're
is,
all
yeah.
taught at an early age.
Right.
It's yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, and you know, even to this day, I still get corrected by people. I think somebody had said something to us one day. We were together. I kept saying yes sir, no sir. It's one of those things. It was our upbringing.
Right.
You being a
I'm
damn
a
Yankee,
damn
you're
Yankee.
damn Yankee. We're you know we're true
We're Southern
Southerners.
guys, right.
Yeah, it's something that that's instilled
Sure,
into you.
absolutely.
And a lot of people, when they come from out west or up north, they're not.
But I'll
They're not
tell you,
used to that.
you know, my background is sort of an intellectual New England family, and it isn't always yes or no, sir. But we are taught inherently to be respectful
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
and
Sure.
to be honest. Set, nature of the beast.
Right.
You were the same way, and that's one of the things I would point out to any other actor is that it didn't matter to you at all whether you were in my front yard filming a scene for Nature of the Beast's promo trailer on no dime, or whether you were on quarry for 2 weeks, 12 hours a day, for whatever they paid.
Right.
You were the same actor.
Yeah.
You were just as respectful. You were just as aware of any chain of command. You were just as willing to ask the questions you needed to ask to make the scene work the way you thought the director would want it to work. And I commend you on that because that's not easy for a lot of people. A lot of people think, well, I'm not getting paid. Why should I give my all? You give your all because this is what you want to do. And if this is what you want to do, giving your all is not a problem. It's a necessity.
And to me, that's my job as an actor, as to take the producer and director and the writer's vision, put it into reality, put it on camera. That's my job. So if I have to ask those questions or ask you exactly what you want, I expect them to tell me, and I'm going to do that. Because I want to make that the best scene I can for the writer, producer, and as well as myself.
Well,
And well, it's because you're putting yourself out there as a commodity.
Right.
You know, you've said it before. You're putting yourself out there as your own entity, your own business.
Right.
And the easier that you come out and you work with a director, whether it be an independent director or, you know, John Hillcoat, the more that you do that and you show the respect to the people that you're working with, and you're willing to listen to what the director's wanting and willing to understand what the character is, that's going to put you in so much work, you
Well,
know.
you never know who's going to see what.
Right. Exactly.
For instance,
Right.
Jamie, he made Cold Blooded. Also a little over a year and a half ago,
Yeah.
whatever. And in it he put Todd, Bateman Underwood, Glenn Payne, Casey Dillon. It's a little independent film made here in town, shown to people here in town. But it also got into the hands of Molly Benson, who's a casting agent in LA. She was impressed by Bateman Underwood. I believe they've had conversations. I don't know that anything's led to anything.
She had met Bateman on the same time at the same time that I had met Bateman, and she was working with Bateman on some things, and him and her had hit it off really well, and that's when I went to Todd about being the Wells character. And
But you never know. Had Todd not met her,
Sure.
and had she been in a different place at the time she saw the film, she might have had work for her.
Absolutely.
You never know who will see the work you do.
Right.
So if you go on a set and you do a half-assed job, and suddenly the person who made that film that you just did a half-assed job on happens to walk across someone important,
Right.
now you've made a really bad impression.
And I'll tell you, I have learned, making the contacts that I have off this HBO thing, I thought this film industry was so large. It's not.
Oh.
It is very, very, very small.
It's very small, very intimate, and very
everyone
inbred.
knows everyone. On this set, on the HBO set, there was grip personnel and directors that just got finished working on the Lone Ranger feature film with Johnny Depp, and you could just hear them conversating back and forth with each other. They said, "Hey, you just worked on this project." "Yeah." "Hey, you just worked on this project." So it's very, very small. Everyone
There's a lot
knows
of
everyone.
cross-pollination.
Yes.
And with you making the kind of impression you're making, one or two of those people can walk away from Quarry and let's say they just got a job on what's the Avengers 2. That's a huge production that'll be coming in a few years.
Right.
Let's say they land a position on that, and while they're working on that, they get wind of a few actors that are needed for some key support extras.
Right.
They remember you. There's another door. You never know where something will lead. So, as the CEO of you, the saleable commodity that is this actor, you need to be aware at all times how you present yourself. Whether that's public presentation professionally, emotional intelligence on Facebook or social sites or any of the media outlets that are available to us now for marketing.
Well, even publicly when you're not on a set.
That's what I'm saying. You
Absolutely.
you are in need of always being what you want to be thought of. Always present yourself the way you want to be perceived.
Right.
Because that's what's going to get you work. That's what's going to make people want to work with you.
Right.
It's also going to be what makes it so that you never work again.
Yeah.
It's going to be the kind of thing that makes people never want to work with you, because if that's how they are here, what can I expect from them here?
Right. Right.
So how you present yourself even when you're not on set, in fact, sometimes that's more important. Because when you're on set, there's a certain amount of looseness and a certain amount of professional that's kind of expected. You got to have those silly
Sure,
moments to let it
absolutely.
out
Absolutely.
and perform your scene.
Right.
So it can be difficult to present oneself properly at all times, but it's extremely important to be able to do that. And you seem to be doing a masterful job.
An excellent job indeed.
Thank
Now,
you guys.
I want to set up a brief, what we're going to cut away to here briefly. This is a sneak peek at a scene you did for us with the Nature of the Beast trailer. This is completely uncorrected. No sound correction's been done. No color correcting's been done. No real edit has been done to it. I wanted people to see a small peek at what we've been up to, because it's been a while since anybody's really seen what we're doing.
Right.
And I also this is a moment, this is a day I treasure, because I don't know what your experience was specifically.
It was great.
But I know going into it that we had 5.5 hours of work to do. And with you, Don Myers,
David Tankersley,
Alex, Willie Adams,
Kent.
our own Marcus Ken Hampson, we did 5.5 hours of work in 3 hours and 15 minutes.
It went great.
And I think the product that we got from that, the footage we gathered from that, looks more like we did 10 hours of work than it does 3. And the fact that we got what we have in that amount of time was really due to the professionalism
Of you guys.
that all of you showed on set. And that was the first time that I had, actually the first time either of us had worked with you. And, you know, it was a day that made me know for sure that I wanted to work with you again as soon as possible.
Thank you.
And I do want to have you in a lead role in something I'll be working on that I don't really want to talk about. But let's go ahead and take a look at this little clip from the Nature of the Beast promotional trailer by our own Jamie Hall.
And that was the last time you saw her?
Yes, sir. Right before I left to spend a few days with some of the boys on my old Army unit. I tried to get on her phone, but when she didn't answer, I got worried. And I came home early.
At what time did you get home?
Oh, I don't know. I think it was about 10 o'clock, something like that. Like I said, I came home. There was nobody here. I reported it as soon as I could.
Excuse me. Can you estimate a time of death for me yet?
It's hard to say right now. I'd estimate between 24 and 48 hours. We'll know more after.
Okay, thank you. I'll be in touch.
This in the ring was all the jewelry she had on her.
Well, hold up. That's evidence. We need to keep that.
That's the necklace Ravana gave her after I left.
Who's Ravana?
Well, wait a minute. Bernice told me about it. She called after I told her I'd arrived early.
But who's Ravana?
She's my next-door neighbor.
Go talk to her.
All right, that was a sneak peek at Nature of the Beast, one small scene of it anyway. And we also took a look at Dan Baker's Avarice.
Right.
I do want to, Dan Baker was the producer on it, and Rachel Taylor, of course, was the director. And she wrote it, did she not? Okay, she's writer and director. I also should mention that in the Nature of the Beast trailer, you saw Alex Mazar, and if you were really quick, when you saw the body bag go by, you saw
Willie's
our own
grandmother.
Marcus Kent Hansen on camera.
Yeah.
Willie's grandmother, or Willie Adams.
Willie Adams was the other one, and his grandmother was...
His grandmother, of course, was in the bag for a quick scene, although we didn't take a look at that. So, I'm really curious. Big professional set like Quarry, right after Nature of the Beast.
Right.
How did you feel about our set?
Yeah. That was the first set that I'd actually worked with you guys on.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say it was a very good experience. You guys were totally professional. There was not much standing around, which actors love, because we don't want to be sitting on set a lot of times waiting for everything to be set up.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it happens, but
yes,
we really do.
Yes.
One of the things we try to do is if we know an actor only has a small scene
Right.
in a bigger scene, we try to go ahead and schedule it out so that they can arrive. We're already set up and started.
Yeah,
they can arrive, go through makeup, come out for their scene, and go.
Yes,
especially when we're not able to pay much of anything.
Right.
And I really appreciated that, and that's what stuck out in my mind so much, is because the other sets that I've worked on, because there is a lot of hurry up and wait on scene, where with you guys it was right there, it was already set up, ready to go. This is what we want.
I know very few people that do pre-production like this man, and I think that day, I mean, I was impressed, and I've worked with him for a year plus already, but that...
Well, it's my intention, you know, I know...
That night was phenomenal.
On an independent level, I know how everybody is. Right. I mean, you have a family. Don Myers, you know, he has things going on.
He has a wife. He has
10,000
different things he's working on at all times.
Has, you know, everybody has a life. You know, I have a family and everything. And my biggest thing is you know, I've been on sets where actors and actresses had to wait 6 hours before, you know, they had a 15-minute scene to do. And, you know, with this whole trailer thing, you know, even before we started the trailer, I was doing setups, as I call them. So that way when we went to one, I already had the setups, you know, and I already had the setup for the next one. And it's important to me, important to us, that we get people in, get their stuff filmed, and get you guys back to your family.
And that means so much to us as an actor.
Oh, yeah.
So much.
Well, I remember going back to Universal Remote again. I think it was 4 hours before we did your scene, and that was the first set you'd really been on, so you were questioning what's going on? Is this how it works? And I tried to tell you, you know, the pre-production on that was minimal. He had rare find going on. He had cross pre-productions going.
Yeah.
He wasn't able to do as much as he wanted to do or as much as he needed to do because of all kinds of extenuating circumstances. I was brought in with Kent, and we had, a week? And we had to spend most of our time figuring out how are we shooting some of the effects work, because there's stuff in there that you can't just shoot it. You have to figure out, we have to burn somebody alive.
Right.
We have to have the undead. There's all these different things we had to work out. So it was a very, very chaotic, short pre-production.
It was.
And we use that as an example often to describe our etiquette, or our work ethic, because we did, our first day was 6 hours at the studio. Then we came back 2 days later. It wasn't the next day. Was it Friday? That day was 43 hours long.
Yes, it was.
We stopped for a few hours and went for another 10 hours.
And it was hot, and it was just...
And it just, that was we did 7 days of shooting in 3.5.
Wow.
Because that was the only way to make it happen.
You slept on the set because...
I didn't.
You did not
didn't
sleep.
Well, I can understand with, there's things, and I think with Universal Remote there was some unforeseen circumstances.
There was a
that
number
happened.
of them.
But for me, I know it's Murphy's Law.
Right.
If something's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Exactly, and you will never be perfect.
No, and there's going to be things that interfere. You're working with electronics, you're working with people. It could be just like what Alex went through today. You could be on a lunch break, and leave, everybody go get lunch and
Get
come back
shot,
and go,
come
hey,
back,
I need this actor, where is he at? Car accident.
Yeah.
Anything can happen that can
on
happen.
Nature of the Beast, the very night you've shot, we actually, as directors, director I should say, went through the other side of that story.
Yeah.
Because Tarek was supposed to be in the role Alex took.
Right.
He fell at work, hurt his leg.
Yeah.
You had 2 hours of warning.
You texted me like an hour before.
I was going to say, it was quick.
I sent you. I remember you sent me the text message like, "Can you do this today?" Tarek can't.
Can you basically do this now?
And as a director, you have plans for the actor that you put into place.
And then, of course, also we had to use Kent because our second body bag.
John Dylan
Atkins
was supposed to be one of the coroner's assistants, and he got trapped at work and wasn't able to come out. But for me, when I envision somebody in a role for something,
exactly.
you get. With me, I'm kind of a visionary. The way that I work things, I play things out in my mind. And I had to make changes for, there's a height difference between you and Tarek.
Yeah.
So I had to make a difference between that and so forth and so on. But if things happen, they happen, and I'm sure actors and actresses understand that. But when you go onto a set and that there hasn't been anything done, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's where it becomes more cumbersome, because you're like, God, why am I here?
And that's what we were talking about earlier, the differences between a big budget set and an independent set. The same thing happened. I could give for instance, one day my grandmother fell in a nursing home early that morning, and she got rushed to the hospital from Boonville, Mississippi to Memphis. And my mom called me and said, hey, this is just what happened. So I called the casting director that morning and said, hey, I can't come. This was like at 5 or 6 in the morning. Said, I can't be here today, which was the only day I missed during the whole 2.5 weeks. They said, we totally understand. So that thing's happened. So she was in a rush to get somebody to fill in for me that day, and thank goodness they had someone already in mind. So it's the same thing. You asked me earlier. It's the same exact thing. Everything can happen. Murphy's Law. It's going to happen.
There's
always going to be.
Happen. Yeah. We're all people. Things happen within our lives. If the lead character had something like that,
sure,
they would have to. You always make plans for that,
right.
And and if that night that something would have happened, we still would have been able to get some key shots of, if something would have happened to Don, we still could have got key shots and everything like that. But, it's, to me, and I've said this a million times before, pre-production is one of those things that I take into consideration, because I want to have my time to my family. I want things to be done, and I respect other actors
Well, being
to be
able
able to do that. That's why it's so important.
Being able to have a plan in place is what's going to save your ass when something happens.
Right.
Even whether it's 1990, whatever it was, when The Crow came out.
Mm-hmm.
They had that movie 90-some-odd% in the can.
And then Brandon Lee.
Brandon Lee
died.
Got shot.
Yeah.
And killed.
Right.
So they hadn't finished the death sequence. They had to figure out how are they going to change this up? How can they film a last scene and get something they can finish a film with?
The same thing happened.
So
with
they
Heath
brought
Ledger.
in.
Heath Ledger,
They
yeah,
changed
Batman.
the way the death
What
worked,
Batman?
and they brought in Heath Ledger, or they brought in Mark Dacascos
Right.
to do a quick couple of body double scenes, and they used some cutting room floor footage, and they pieced together a different, not an ending sequence, but a death scene. Sorry,
Right.
death sequence. But that's because they had things in place. They had plans on how they can work things. And, you never know what's going to happen. There are instances where movies are planned, and then all of a sudden somewhere down the line in the chain makes a change.
Right.
And
you
have
go in
to
a
shift.
turnaround, or you go in a turnaround.
The Graduate, a classic movie, big start for, I can't believe I just lost his name, Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah.
A big start for Dustin Hoffman. He was not originally who they cast in that role. Believe it or not, Burt Ward, Robin from Batman and Robin, was originally supposed to be in that film. But it ended up being shifted to Dustin Hoffman. So anybody that had plans had to shift with that. And, that probably wasn't as big a deal at the time. It probably wasn't even anywhere near in production when that happened. But it can happen anywhere in the chain. And if you have a plan in place, you steer. But if you have no plan, every little crack becomes a tragedy.
Yeah.
The whole production gets thrown off. I let that happen. Happy Hour fell apart because I didn't have as much of a plan as I thought in place. It was a project that was a little more unwieldy than I was probably ready to take on, with as many X factors in my production. And by X factors I mean not yet having the budget, working exclusively with local, unknown actors essentially, and having to deal with the fact that every one of these actors has a schedule of their own. They're not professional actors this is their job. They're imminently available as soon as they have a role. None of that's available to us. So we have to have a plan. And I honestly don't know how some of the people that are making films do it without having that plan.
Well, some of the actors are not as able to, like you said, their schedules are not be able, and that's one thing I wanted to talk to you about, Keith, with you being in law enforcement and having to take that 2 weeks off because he was on set for 10, 12 hours a day. How was that, being in law enforcement? I'm pretty sure it's hard to be able to get time off and
Yeah,
so.
I went to my boss when I first landed it, and I called him, and I said, "Do you have a second to meet with me?" So I went up to the PD and met with him and told him what I was getting involved in. He said, "How much vacation time do you have?" So I told him, I said, "I've got plenty of time." He said, "Okay, let me talk to the chief," and because I just got a new partner with me, so I hated to leave him untrained.
Right.
While I took off for 2.5 weeks. So they were super understanding. They said, "Look, we know this opportunity does not come around here often, and we're not going to keep you from this. So take your time off."
You are
see
very
that was
fortunate.
very lucky, because there's been times where John Dylan Atkins, he was supposed to be on set that night with us, and he goes, "Hey man, person didn't show up, and they told me I had to stay."
Right.
There's been times with me, I get called and go, "Hey, you've got to be here now."
Sure.
I've got, on my day off or something like that.
When my first film, Morning Ritual, was opening at the local fest in Memphis, the job I was working had a mandate. You cannot request any time off within 2 weeks' time once a schedule is posted. So if they post your schedule for a month away, you can do all the requests you want, but once you get under 14 days, it's
And this-
locked. You can't change.
That's the same way with me.
So they posted a schedule. I had my day off to go to the fest and see my film.
Right.
12 days before that, they changed the schedule and put me on.
Wow.
I had to quit my job in order to go see my film. And I went in, I said, look, I requested the day off. You gave me the day off. You have this mandate. Now we're under that time limit, and you've switched it on me, and you're not allowing me to request time off. What do I need to do? And she said there was nothing they could do. They had to have me. So I quit. There was no way I could miss the premiere of my first film at a film festival when this is what I want. And certainly a day job at a retail joint was not.
Right.
So I actually had to quit a job to pursue it.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I feel so blessed, because I do have a good job with people that understand what I'm striving to do, and they're willing to work with me on it. Matter of fact, my boss went to the chief and said, hey, this is what Keith's doing, because any outside employment we have to get approval to do.
Well, isn't there some sort of, I don't know what they'd call it, but the way it reflects upon
it
the
is
person?
On the department, yes,
absolutely.
Because they wouldn't want you out there acting like, smoking crack or something like that in a film.
Absolutely. So he went and talked to the chief, and the chief said, does he have enough time? And he said, yeah, he's got enough time. He said, well, me and the chief are even conversating, giving him a leave of absence if you didn't have enough time. So they've been working with me, and they've been super great. And I'm fortunate for that.
Well, that's good. That's good.
I think one of the things that actors most have to deal with, I think, is that period of time when you have to decide whether or not the career profession, because the thing about acting is that it's an industry where it changes so much. So you have to be willing to make decisions based on, okay, well, I can go do this movie and this could be a good thing for my career and I could get opportunities.
Well, you had asked a question to Tarek once before, and Tarek's family is medical people, and a lot of times with medical people, they want their
generation to be
they want their
carried
generation.
on.
You know how
I'm
it's
sure your
the same
father
way.
probably wants you to go to medical school.
Well, yeah, I think it's for the fact that, in that regard, I think it's the fact that people want in the terms of that in medical school, you tend to, usually the thing is that you can, if your family comes from that, you have a higher chance of getting in. It's kind of like the Ivy League school thing.
Well, they also think there's a stability,
right,
and expected
the reason why
to that.
The reason why they tend to choose kids, alumni children, because they feel that they grew up in the whole background of the medical. They think that it'll be a great candidate for being a doctor because they have the history and understanding of their parents doing it.
The reason why I said that is because you had asked. I went to Tarek and I go, how serious are you about the progression within acting? He goes, I'm really serious about it. And you chimed in. You go, what's your backup plan? And Tarek kind of paused for a minute. And he goes, I don't have a backup plan.
And that's the best answer.
And that's the best answer that you can have, because if you're going to take the time to become an actor, it's going to take time. It's not something that you wake up one day and go, hey, Keith Goff got on Corey. I can too. It's
I'm
not
not going to
something
sit here and say there's necessarily wisdom in not having a backup plan, but pretty much in any art field, if you want to be a musician, if you want to be a singer, if you want to be an actor, if you want to be a painter, those are things that are fueled by the passion. You have to be 1,000%, or you will never come close.
Yeah. What is that saying? It's like never have a plan B because it distracts from plan A. So.
That's that is true.
And it's very true. I don't want to take credit for the question. I watch a lot of the singing shows, and I was watching The Voice Australia, and it was, of all people, Seal. Kiss from a Rose. He said it to one of the performers. He said, what is your backup plan? And they said, well, I've gone to school for it. He said, there's no room for that now, because this person had done a phenomenal audition. And he basically told them, he said, as good as you are, as much as you want this, you don't have room for a backup plan, because to pursue this is all-consuming. And that is because of what we mentioned earlier. You are the CEO of you. Keith Goff is an actor. It's a commodity. You need to sell that commodity to directors and to projects to be used. You are the salesman that sells that commodity. You are the agent that represents that commodity, even to your agent. You are the businessman behind all the bank that comes to that. You are everything. And yes, eventually maybe you'll have a PR person. Eventually maybe you'll have a personal accountant, a personal trainer, a private coach. You are still responsible for you. You end up on the National Enquirer. That's not your agent that did that.
Right.
That's not the director that put you there. That's you as a human being going out and living your life, and either being caught in that moment or blatantly doing something stupid enough out in public that you deserve to be on.
Or it's just, or it's just some, made up BS, because a lot of those publications are, they're selling product.
But when you handle your business side properly, you are less likely to end up in the made up BS.
Right.
Because you've covered yourself with your professionalism and your thorough attitude, your thorough approach to the work you do. And that is absolutely necessary. And when you take that on, there isn't room. Think about what we do. I have a day job part-time, they say, and I do this. When do I really have time to do this properly? Because we're running this show. We're working out Nature of the Beast. We're working out another project on the side. We've got a short film. We're talking to Ruby Wilson's people about something. We've got all the, we've got different clients for different things coming to us on smaller scales. We have to spread ourselves across all of that. And when we go out and do that, we have to present ourselves to those people as someone they want to work with.
Sure.
We can't just say, look at our work, it speaks for itself. I tried that for 8 years, and I went nowhere except for in circles as a filmmaker. So we have to get out there. We have to present ourselves professionally. We have to make people want to work with us. We have to make people trust us. We have to make people believe in us and in our ability to do what it is they want us to do for them. Whether that is you as an actor on our set, you as an actor in our class, or someone out there that has hired us to do something at all times. Read my Facebook posts, my personal page, the Rising Fire page, the In Frame page. Very rarely will you ever see anything that's emotionally motivating. We think about everything we do.
Oh yeah, because there's been times I just wanted to go absolutely ape shit on people, but I have to draw. Usually when I do that, I call him and cuss him out.
And that's
a little bit.
Just so I don't do it. Yeah, because I will. I'm the people that know me know that I can be a short-tempered person, and when my temper comes out, I don't have a filter
And
between my brain and my mouth.
And when you deal with as much stuff as we're dealing with between all the shows and the different productions, the delayed productions, the upcoming productions, the productions we should be a lot further along on than we are, when you have that much going on, it's easy to become frustrated very quickly.
Sure. And,
one person's change in a schedule is disaster to a production at this level sometimes. And, how many times have we delayed Afterlife because of something like that?
It's been, it's been delayed 6 or 7, hell, it's been delayed for 2 years.
And it's, I don't want people to get the wrong impression, but there was legitimately a day where he was done. He's like, I don't care about this anymore. I'm done with this production. And I had to sit down with him and say, Jamie, think about what this production is. Think about what it reveals about you as a filmmaker, and how it can come across and present itself to an audience, and how important that will be to you on the front end of making Nature of the Beast. Because people need to see what he did with Cold Blooded, but they also need to know what he's capable of on other levels, because Cold Blooded is only one facet, and no diamond shines properly when you're looking at one facet. And I'm here to tell everybody out there, the man has a lot of facets to his personality, as well as to his art form.
Sure.
And Afterlife is a necessary project. So delay after delay after delay aside, it will get done, because he needs to put it out there. And deep down he knows that. And, you know, despite a day of frustration, he let it out and we've moved forward. But it can be hard. It can be very hard.
With Corey being done, we've offered you the role of the detective, or the junior detective.
The same that he took in the trailer.
The same thing that you did in the trailer, which is going to offspan into another film that I want to bring you into as more of a lead. So besides that going on, if you've got any other projects or anything that you're really interested in or that you're going to be doing, let us know. We really want to know about it.
Well, I got submitted to a feature film that is shooting in Orlando in 2014. I submitted my headshot and my resume, and I have my own website now. It's www.keithgoff.com. That was set up by a lady out in LA for me. And so anyway, I sent my resume and headshot to this feature film.
Is this a union film?
Yes, it is union, and to be shot in Orlando, Florida. And they emailed me back saying that they will be casting within the next couple of months. And after going through tons of submissions, they're wanting to hang on to my headshot, my resume, and contact information, because they want me to come to Orlando, Florida, and actually read for a specific lead character role. So I'm excited about that.
Excellent.
And then, of course, if the Corey movie with HBO gets picked up, which I think it will.
Usually HBO doesn't do something.
In the past few years, they've been really shrewd about how they've gone into productions, and it's usually, near as I can tell, of course I'm not on the inside or anything, but near as I can tell, they don't back a pilot unless they're pretty sure they're intending to go forward with at least a season.
Right. And so if that comes to fruition, I'll get work out of that, which is very exciting. And once they do the pilots, from my understanding, that it will not be the same director. Another director will actually come in and shoot the episode.
That's generally typical of a television
and then,
series.
Of course, it'll be a whole different crew to come in. So that gives me the opportunity at that time to meet more people and network some more.
And that's exactly why the term work begets work works.
Right.
And it is because you are constantly, what's going to happen if they get picked up? You're going to be on that series, and somewhere down the line, season 2, episode 7, different crews all over the place, you're going to work with someone, and they're going to look you dead in the face and they're like, I just worked with somebody else on something, and he was talking about you. And you're going to start seeing that this cross-pollination really does lead to you getting mentioned to other people, which can lead to jobs.
When I started, when I got that role in it, I was so skeptical, because I've heard all these horror tales about people from LA. You know, they're snobs, but everyone was so nice on that set.
If I'm not mistaken,
nice.
Johnny Hillcoat's not from America.
Right.
He's Australian,
That's
I think.
correct. That's correct. But everyone was so nice on that set. They welcomed me as one of them, and I was appalled. I couldn't believe it.
In our experience for our sets, and I don't say this for anybody else's sets, though I've been on a couple where I think it's probably somewhat true. A good set is a family.
Oh yeah.
You have to have an unbelievable amount of faith and trust in each other to get through the day properly. Even though you don't know each other, they have to have the faith and trust that you're going to be on time, that you're going to do what you need to do, that you're going to take direction.
It's a support. It's almost like a support group, because everybody has a common goal. They want to get the production done. You know, if you put your time and you put your energy into something, you want it to get done. You want it to look good. You're willing to do whatever you have to do to help that along, and you have to depend on the person next to you.
And honestly, good attitudes and good camaraderie, good communication, these are things you want on your set.
There are, but we can't sit here and go, okay, every day's a great day. There's going to be a day where somebody has.
Oh, it's always going to happen.
It's just like Willie said the other day when he was here last week. Actor got upset because he didn't have his popsicle.
Yep.
He wanted his popsicle. Okay, get him his popsicle. He'll shut the hell up. you know, there's going to be times, and you're not always going to be on your cue. The director's not going to be on his game. Maybe he went out the night before,
Right.
had some fun with some of the cast and crew. Everybody's going to have a bad day, but you learn from those bad days and pick it up the next day or the next 10 minutes. You step off and
I think
you do your woosah. And
the key,
and I've got to say this, the HBO directors and producers and writers, they love the Midtown area here.
Do they?
They love the Midtown area here. They always came down here, and this is where we actually came out at night.
Okay.
They always loved the Midtown area.
Well, it's a great area.
Yeah.
And, despite lack of incentives or anything like that, we have tons of talent. And, again, as I would say to anybody out there, now is the time to really make a decision as an actor, as a crew person, even as a director, because sometimes these jobs offer directors opportunities as well. And if, as a director, maybe they're not offering a director's position, but what can I learn as a PA on a set like that? What would I learn from working with John Hillcoat, who's done 2 professional features, a ton of music videos, television shows, all these other things? What could I learn from him? It's worth it. So now is really a good time for anybody to really start thinking about how serious are they?
With the prospects of Corey actually getting made, and I feel that it will get made.
I suspect it will be picked up.
And hopefully everything's going to be done back in South Haven Horn Lake again. It's time for people to start. It's time for people to start realizing that. It's time for the actors.
Opportunities are going to come this way. There's already started.
Yeah. So
and if they want work,
it's time to get prepared for it.
It's time to be prepped for it.
They didn't give a lot of. They didn't give a lot of notice from what I'm understanding for Corey. That I think they posted it up for about a week or 2.
Yeah.
Because by the time I found out about it, somebody had called me and said, "Hey, they're looking for people."
Yeah.
I know that you don't act a lot, but they're looking for people with longer hair.
I found out about it in a really roundabout way. I didn't even see posts.
Yeah, you let me know about it too.
I let you know about it because somebody told me that, from a completely left field, not even film related, somehow they got wind of it. They told me.
Right. Well, see, I did. I submitted my stuff, but I submitted it too late because I didn't find out about it. But you never know what they're going to be looking for the next time they come back here.
And that same casting company that did Corey is also doing the Vampire Diaries. So once you submitted your stuff to them, they've got it on file.
They can push you around.
Yeah, they can push you around. They say, hey, he would be perfect for this.
Another person that was on Corey that we know and love here at Black Lodge is Victoria Cleveland.
I forgot about that.
She was on Corey as well. I think her stuff was a little bit. I don't think it was as long as yours, but she did some. I can't remember what it was that she did, but she was on Corey as well. So there's a lot of opportunity with this show coming up that people really need to break out and get serious about.
And honestly, if the crew had a good experience here, they're going to tell other crews, they're going to tell other directors, and other projects may be coming this way as well. And there's been a rumor off and on that the incentive programs in Louisiana might change, not for the better.
Right.
And Atlanta has already started gearing up for extra work.
Yeah. Atlanta and North Carolina.
I was going to say in North Carolina, and I think people, Mississippi is being underestimated, and I think there's a lot of area that's been unfilmed in this region, and that's Craig Brewer, when he filmed here, one of the biggest reasons he wanted to film here was because as many films have been done in Memphis, from The Firm to Mystery Train, there are places in Memphis that have never seen camera, and Craig went to those places.
Well, some of Corey was. They actually filmed
they did
some
some
of
exteriors
it.
here, I think.
Well, they did some stuff in Memphis. I don't know if they did any exteriors but I remember coming.
We did some exteriors.
Did they?
A few exteriors.
Out beside, we did around the arcade, Ernestine and Hazel area.
That's see, that area, in my opinion, is one of the most over-filmed locations in the city. It's in almost everything that's been done.
Yeah, because I know the Memphis Beat with that TV series with Jason Lee and them. they were shooting a lot down there as well.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Right.
Both locations,
Yeah.
gorgeous
Perfect.
on camera. There's a reason they've been as shot
It's
as they
perfect.
have been.
It's perfect.
But, you know, we have so much more than that. And with Mississippi opening up some incentives, with the potential of Louisiana turning away work because of their incentive
More's gonna come
programs,
here.
more opportunities are heading this way. And I think, as I was trying to allude earlier, that our actors, our cast, our crew people, our directors, all of us need to realize the business side of what it is we want. We need to ask ourselves, how serious are we?
Right.
What does it take to be serious? You know, very few actors in this town realize what an actor in LA goes through. They go through a day job, then they go through another job so they can pay for their acting classes.
Right.
An acting class isn't a class you pay for and walk into. An acting class is something you audition for. If you're good enough, they'll take your prepayment and you will show up on time or you will be on the other side of a locked door with no refund.
That's it.
And that's what it's
Right.
taking it serious is like. We don't have that here on any level. We have indie acting studios. You pay your money, you have a class.
Right.
You have inner fire acting classes. You pay your money, you have a class. You have Daniel Martine's master acting class. You pay your money, you have a good class. Ours is a good class. You've got Lily Rose. There's like 4 other classes nowadays from what I understand. But the actors that are going to these classes aren't realizing what they need to be to become what they want. And, you know, 1 class is good. 5 classes is better. 1 teacher is good. 5 teachers are better. You can't learn everything from 1 person.
Right.
You referred me to Daniel.
I told you to get out of our class at least once and go to Daniel.
I went to
because you
Daniel,
needed
you know,
something
because
different.
Daniel is he's a very experienced veteran of the LA. He's been in LA, been in New York, he's been everywhere.
He's done stage, he's done screen,
You
he's
name
done
it, he's
TV,
done it. He's worked.
done it.
He's worked on some really, really well-known films or some really well-known actors. He, you know, was taught in what is that place in New York City? Inside the Actors Studio.
Mhm.
That he went there. Cliff Montgomery was his personal, not Cliff Montgomery. The person that taught Cliff Montgomery was his acting coach. Worked with him. So he and the thing about Daniel was that he is a very he has a reputation of being a very, I don't know,
Intense.
abrasive person, but that's a good thing, I think, if you want to be an actor. Because in this business, people are very abrasive because they have egos, because they have money, and because of the cutthroat industry that it is. So I went to Daniel, and I was like, wow, you know, Daniel, you know, he is like, this is what a proper script analysis is. And so, I mean, it was so much different, and I think it is something that people should go to.
I tell every actor that we talk to, if you want to act locally, take your local classes. Obviously, I promote ours because I want them to come to ours, but find some local teachers, take some local classes, be consistent about it, change it up, go to different classes once in a while, work with different directors, do what you can to learn. Read about it, acting, watch acting videos on YouTube, whatever it takes. If you want to go to LA, ever want to go to LA as an actor, do not leave this city without going to Daniel's class. Because Daniel's class is a very, very, very cut back version of what an LA class is like. And I love Daniel to death. He's a good teacher. He's a really good coach. Hell, he changed an actor that we know
tremendously,
completely. 360 degree turnaround for that guy. But you can't leap from our class to LA. You can't leap from Forrest's class to LA. You're not prepared for what that's going to... They'll eat you alive.
And Daniel was telling me that. I mean, one of the reasons I changed my last name was because we were sitting in his office, and he's like, you know, your name's not marketable enough. It doesn't match your look, and you need to change it. And I was like, why? And I was like asking him, like, why do we need to change my name? It's because when they go in the marketing aspects of being an actor, one of the things is they have to be able to say, okay, that guy's name, okay, well, I can remember that name for one of the reasons it's memorable and it's marketable. Because he was telling me that, you know, your headshot and all this, he told me that he was going to take my headshot and he sent it out to one of his friends out in LA, and he's like, let me get a second opinion on what he thinks he looks like and what the best marketing is.
And you know, when you called and told me that, there was a thought that I didn't bring up at the time that ran through my mind. My name is unusual. Most people can remember my name because of that. Mm-hmm. The effect a name has on a person can be a difference. I went to a Fuel Film event and they had crap, I forgot his name. He works on American Horror Story now too. A writer from Hollywood. I stood up through the Skype to ask him a question. The deal was you stand up, you say your name, you ask your question. I got up, I said, my name's J. Lazarus Hawk, and I never even got to finish, I'm a filmmaker in Memphis, because he was like, your name's what? He's like, man, I need to name a villain in one of my stories after you. That's a great name. It made an impression. It became, in his mind, something he could use marketably for a villain or a main character of some kind, because it had a ring to it. So, he's right. Yeah. Knowing how you are presented, going back to what we were talking about, knowing the way you are presenting yourself publicly to directors, casting agents, production personnel, you never know who you're standing next to in the bathroom.
And Daniel was, in addition to that, Daniel was also talking about how he was just kind of giving me instances about, you know, different experiences that he had when he was on set and that kind of thing, about how, you know, in this business there are secrets that people don't know about that, you know, dictate whether or not you're going to get yourself a job or whether who you're going to know.
Oh yeah.
And me and Jamie, when we were trying to find cast for Nature of the Beast, I was on the phone with who was it? Kevin Smith's agent. And I was on the phone with him saying, can we talk to you because we're interested in having him on as being a producer. And the thing that really dictated that I talked to Daniel about, because I just wanted him to hear about how this went, was that the dude hung the phone up on me because I couldn't take his email fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing.
He had to have him repeat himself.
Like twice, and then he hung the phone up on me.
Yeah, that's one thing that that me and Alex spoke about, because Alex was starting to get frustrated with the whole process.
Yeah.
Me and Alex, we sat at my desk for, what, 4.5 hours?
Probably 4.5 hours calling, like, William
calling
Morrison,
different
Deborah,
agencies and everything.
and all these people, just trying to get freaking numbers.
Alex was getting mad. He was getting mad, and he was getting mad, and I was like, you're doing it the wrong way. And he was like, what do you mean I'm doing it the wrong way? I said, you're doing it too nicely.
And ever since that day, I've been more of an asshole to these people because they take you more seriously.
You don't have to be an asshole.
You just have to
direct. You have to be direct and professional, because one of the things Daniel told me was that I was telling him about that, and he said, listen, those people, the minute that you show that you're an amateur, they'll hang up the phone up on you. But if you present yourself with a more professional attitude and more dominance that you've been here for a while, they'll treat you differently.
You have to be direct. You have to know what you're talking about. As he was about to say it, you have to have a plan.
Yeah.
You need to go on that phone knowing exactly what it is you're going to say and what you want out of that phone call, and you do not deviate, you do not get into tangents, you do not start talking to them about the weather. You don't let that shit happen.
It's one thing and one thing
on point.
Right.
And these people are big Hollywood executives. These people they don't care about your call. Is not going to break. Is not going to make his career. His career's already made.
Yeah.
You know, they don't need you.
They don't have time to waste. You getting frustrated with them? Who are you to be frustrated?
They'll just hang the phone.
That's a hang up.
Yeah.
Anything.
We're gonna take another break, and we'll be back with you guys here in just a few moments.
Dig! I said dig!
The picturesque hamlet of Bolton, Connecticut. Your typical New England town. However, under its beauty is a tragic history. Meet young filmmaker Pierce Lindad, born and raised. Perhaps you know Pierce's grandfather, the former trooper of the town and a beloved public figure. Pierce's friends have just helped him make a movie. And it premieres tonight. Not everyone is happy about it. This could be the best night of Pierce's life. Had he only known. I filmed your death. A portrait of today's youth. Always looking for an escape. Always looking for a distraction. Always. I filmed your death. Outside the public access channel. A popular television show personality makes a disturbing discovery when he finds that I filmed your death. 2 intoxicated youths take it to the next level. But when the lights go off, I filmed your death. All of these deaths plus yours, I filmed your death. Filmed your death. Not everyone wants to be in a movie.
Last night, everything was fine.
No, everything has not been fine.
Alright, welcome back. We took a quick look there at a couple of trailers for some upcoming local productions. We had I Filmed Your Death, and what was the other one you showed? Slaughterhouse 5. That's actually not an upcoming one. That's already been released. That, of course, was
Christian Walker's
film, produced by Woodsy Smith,
Smith,
who's working with us on the Nature of the Beast project.
So I have to ask a question to Keith. Now that you're more experienced and more seasoned.
Oh, I don't know about that.
So what did you do before? I mean, we'd had a long conversation about some of the things that you needed to do. What did you do as an actor to prepare each day? What, you know, if there's an aspiring actor or an actor that we know of out there, since you've been on a bigger production for HBO, what did you do on a daily basis to prepare for your day of work?
Well, once I first landed that role as the lead role of the lead character in this, first of all, I got online and I searched him. I researched everything about him, from his childhood upbringings until his
You're talking about the actor?
Yes, the actor. And so I started researching everything I could about him. And that did 2 things for me. That gave me something on a personal level to talk with him about and make him feel more comfortable with me. The second thing, it let me know how he acted, you know, what his appearances were. The first day that I auditioned, of course, he come in and stood on camera right beside me. And we had the same skin tone. However, his hair was longer. He had a beard and had a real thick mustache. So immediately I started letting mine grow out to fit him. So to me, that was one of the major things, that I need to fit his role. I need to find out what his demeanor was, how he walked, how he stood.
I love, I mean, I remember when you called, I said something about, you know, every little body movement.
Yeah.
But I love that you had the wherewithal to think of all of that every day, to every little thing, whether it was 5 o'clock shadow, not 5 o'clock shadow, you know.
And I even went on some of the interviews that he has done and watched his body movement, watch how he carried himself. And I tried to take that to the set with me and portray that as much as I could.
Now,
and it worked.
do you feel that it was beneficial, or is he one of those actors that gets on set and completely changes everything about himself?
No, he is a very good actor, and he does, he's very intense. He does little things right before he walks on the set, and it makes everybody say, wow. But he gets into that character so much, and of course you don't want to talk to him at that time,
Right.
because he is in that zone. So you don't want to
Now,
interrupt that at all.
was he a character that, when he was on set, did he stay in character all day? Even when cut, did he still stay in character?
You
Was
know,
he
he
more
was-
of a method actor?
That's method, yeah.
He was so diverse. He could walk on the set and interact with the director and saying, hey, John, let's look at this, or let's do it this way. And John would say, okay, let's try it. So John Hillcoat was a great director to work for, first of all, because he had that open mindset. He knew what he wanted. He envisioned what he wanted. But Logan brought in something else to change it just a little bit to make it better.
That's a good
And-
actor can do
yeah.
that at times. I mean, it's not something that's going to happen every time,
Right.
every scene,
Right.
but an actor doing his job
Right.
can truly find something in a character that another person might not have found yet.
And then back to the question you asked, when it was time for breaks and we sat down and actually ate, he was back to his normal self. But then as soon as that was over, you could see him
A transformation.
getting back into that character. I mean, as soon as he got up from the table, you could see him walking.
So now,
and you could
as
see that.
you move forward, you may encounter these actors that are now. There's more of an older school.
Right.
Fred Gwynn, Herman Munster.
Right.
Was one of those types. And I can't imagine that at
Yeah.
all. When the cameras are not rolling, between cuts, lunch breaks, still in makeup is still in character.
Yeah.
So if
More of a
you're on the
method.
set, if you're on the set of The Munsters,
You've got to
and you're
deal with
filming
Herman
a scene,
Munster all day.
and then you cut, and you go to lunch, you're at lunch with Herman Munster.
Right. Stellan Skarsgård, that played a character
I love
in
Stellan
his,
Skarsgård.
he was that way. Even when he was on,
That doesn't surprise
when
me.
he was on set, and he wasn't actually on camera, but he was on set, he was in that character.
That's
He would
that's
walk,
a method.
He would walk
That's-
around by himself, not speaking to anybody, just
Yep.
in that character.
He's the
Yeah.
actor, if you don't recognize the name, he is the actor that plays the doctor, the older gentleman doctor in Thor that he becomes friends with. And he is also the father of the blonde actor on True Blood, the really tall vampire.
Noah Taylor was another actor, and he was the same way as Stella was. Once he was on set, camera or off camera, he was in
Just
that
in
mode.
character.
Yeah, he was in that character.
Okay, so we know what you did as far as your research, preparing for your research on your, on the character that you were.
Yes.
Mentally, yourself as an actor, what did you do to prepare yourself mentally? A lot of times, I played football, and
How'd you psych yourself up for the game? as it
basically.
were?
And before a football game, I'd listen to Slayer. I'd listen to everything Slayer ever had to put that aggression into me to go out and knock some heads around. Right before I go into a set that I'm directing, I did it with Cold Blooded, I did it with Nature. I like to sit down. I've got certain musics that I play to prepare me for what I'm getting ready to do.
Right.
What is it, some of the things that Keith Goff does to prepare for something like that?
Well, the thing I did is just being a stand-in and not actually having a speaking role or actually have to get into character. My main thing was just when I was on camera, whether if I was shirtless on a scene that he was going to be shirtless on, or anything that I was involved with on camera, I thought back to what I saw him doing in these other films, the way I saw him present himself on camera on that particular set, and I try to mimic that the best I can. And it worked. It worked.
So you don't find yourself going into a zone force to kind of prepare yourself, you know, for that particular day.
I could see myself if I had
At a speaking line?
a speaking line or character role. Absolutely, I would get in that zone, and whether it be listening to music or taking out aggression on things that's happened in the past to get those brought back up. The one thing that I did with Michael Crowlin shot my reel for me, and one of the scenes in it was me crying because I just lost a child in a horrific accident. And so I put that in perspective of my life, even before I got on camera. Man, if this was my son, how would I react? And actually, I didn't have to try to cry. The tears came naturally. Because I put my mindset, hey, this is me, and this is what's happened to my child.
I would imagine that.
Right.
How many years as a cop?
Yeah, I've been 20 years.
23?
Yeah.
I imagine there's any number of experiences along the lines of duty that you can kind of extrapolate certain emotive expressions or feeling, you know, just to get into a point.
Well, you know, I kind of agree with that, and I kind of disagree with it as well, because I had law enforcement in my family. You know, my grandfather was a police officer. I did 6 years, you know, as a bounty hunter, and
you become cold.
You do. You become cold to certain aspects. I also
you almost have to.
I worked on the fire department. You know, I worked as a volunteer firefighter in Nesbitt, Mississippi for a number of years, and I can remember the first time that I'd seen something really gruesome. It really does affect you. But as time goes on, where I disagree with it, is as time goes on, you're correct. You go cold. I mean, it's something that you get adjusted to.
But is it something you can reach back into?
You can reach back so far, but
out, as it were.
You can reach out so far. You can maybe reach out to that first time that you see something. As a fireman, and the part of the thing that was my job as a volunteer fireman, I worked part of the rescue. I worked the rescue squad. I was the driver for the rescue squad, and I also had to go out when there was fatalities and stuff like that. You know, and one of the first accident scenes I ever worked in my life was my own cousin. You know, I can reach back to something like that because I didn't know it at the time that he was a relative, but he was a really good friend.
Right.
And then I found out that he was a relative, you know, after he had passed away and buried him. Well, something like that you can go back to.
But a lot of the things that you block out.
You do.
And that's
because
your way
if you don't, it'll drive you crazy.
You have to.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
You'd snap.
But then, like he just said, there's certain things that happen that will never go away.
Right.
That it's embedded in you, and you will never forget that. So, to answer that question, yes, there has been times that I have looked back on incidents that I have seen and either reacted angry or reacted emotionally upset.
But when, as an actor, I would think that you would want to pull, like you said, you pulled more from your own life.
It's
than
much
you,
more.
And that's what we've always tried to express in our classes. You want to draw from something, you know,
it's personable.
That is very personal to you.
It brings an authenticity to it.
It does. I mean, because, you know, I'm a father, and if somebody would come to me, I mean, it would be a natural thing for me to think about something like that if something had happened to one of my kids.
Absolutely.
Your father, you're saying
Absolutely.
But, you know, it's good that you can revert to something like that. But for some people, it's not that easy, you know.
A lot of people have a very hard time, and that's one of the reasons that being a serious actor isn't for everybody. Because sometimes class is therapy as much as anything else. You know, in really strong actors, there are a lot of times where you reach down into something to give it to the camera. And it exactly. I remember, God, however long ago, 13 years ago, I played the shadowy figure in a short film called Block by Melissa Crouch that was produced by Craig as part of the BR 2001 group of films that Morning Ritual was a part of. And Lindsay was on set. Lindsay from Born Hungry. Lindsay Roberts, sorry. And she was playing the character. Now, the concept is basically we're inside the head of a writer. And she's handcuffed and blindfolded to piping. that's kind of her muse being trapped. Lindsay had to do this really intense scene with a blindfold, and as an actor, if you don't see the eyes, that's tough. Right. She got herself ready, put on the blindfold, they handcuffed her to the pipe, she did the scene, they called cut, she immediately said, "Get me out of these now." They got her uncuffed, she ripped off the blindfold, she walked out, and she was gone for 10 minutes. Because she had gone somewhere so personal to get something out of herself to bring it to camera without having her eyes.
It takes a minute to come.
Took it.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, I've got a friend of mine that's, she's not from this area, but I talk to her a lot on the phone, and she's an actress. She's a really good actress. But she can cry on command. Mm-hmm. You can look at her and cry. And she can cry like, something has really truly happened in her life.
It's an impressive skill when someone can do that.
Sarah Smith, she's come to our classes a couple times, and she was reading for...
she was so good that one time she almost had me cry.
Yeah, and I mean, she cried, and it's because that she stopped. She took a couple of minutes and she goes, "I really looked at something that really happened." But after that, she was the same way. She kind of walked off for a little bit. It didn't take her as long, but she walked off and she came back.
And I personally, and I'm not saying by any means that I'm right or that I'm professional enough to know this, but I personally think that is probably a large portion of what happened to Heath Ledger.
It was.
That he went so far into that character for such long periods of time through a shooting day. Then he had to stop, get out of makeup, sleep, get up, get into makeup, and back. I don't think he ever came back.
With him, he was method. He's very method.
Very method. And that's
and
not
for people
the type
that
of
don't know.
character
For people that don't know out there, when you're a method actor, when the director yells "cut," you're still that character.
You are that character for the rest of the day. I mean, from start of day till end of day.
Right.
You don't.
It's like what we said a while ago. You ate lunch with Herman Mustard.
Yep.
Munster. On the set of Batman, you ate with the Joker. I mean, I don't know if I'd want to, but that right there clicked inside of something in Heath Ledger's head, and especially for what he put himself through to prepare for this role, because he prepared for this role for 6 months in a locked hotel room, watching case files of therapists talking to psychotic people, to people with extreme bipolar, and to prepare for this role. And then he would get up in the mornings, he'd be in makeup, and he'd be in makeup all day long, and it drove him crazy.
It really.
One of the things was recently, I think, just recently, they released his journal of what he had, and there was things in there. I think they said one of the most disturbing things that was in the journal was at the very end of the journal, he had written bye-bye.
Yeah, he wrote bye-bye. The last entries, bye-bye.
Well, Jack Nicholson warned him.
The day that Heath Ledger died,
character.
they interviewed Jack Nicholson, like paparazzi were taking pictures. Like, "So did you hear that Heath Ledger died today?" And he's just like, "I warned him.
And see, there's and it takes a great actor, and I was a big fan of Heath Ledger. I was a big fan of Heath Ledger before he did the Joker. It's really hard for actors, especially in that act, for you guys to go, to put yourself through that. And I'm one of those directors that has always tried to capitalize on a person's natural emotions. And that's one of the biggest things for me. And I would hate to have somebody that, I want this, I need this, and this is what you have to do. And I did that with Bateman Underwood.
I don't know if after losing Heath Ledger I could have done another movie.
I mean, the thing
the
about
connection I try to have with an actor when I do a film is a very personal relationship.
I mean, we've had discussions.
I was going to say,
you and Lazlo's had a discussion.
I was very interested in method acting because, as an actor, I wanted to take a challenge and go more serious with something to see how that would work with my performances. And I did some research, and the thing, method acting has its place.
Very much so.
But the problem with it is that if you're a method actor and you don't know the proper way to do it, like Gary Oldman's a method actor, but he knows to break himself, take a break, and don't go too far. I mean, I was doing some research on method acting, and there's psychological effects that these things have.
And we warned you about that.
Bipolar,
Yeah.
I mean, you can go really too far. So I think method
Easily,
acting is
unfortunately.
one of those things that if you train properly, the right person that knows how to do it and says, okay, this is where you become a method actor. This is where you stay into character, but this is where you also need to take a break because you'll go crazy.
You have to know where there's that line. And I tell, a lot of people used to say, actors having trailers and things like that, they're just prima donnas, they want their own little... Yeah, there are actors that are prima donnas, but that's not why they have a trailer. An actor has a trailer because they have to go somewhere and prepare.
Yeah.
And then they have to go on that set and they have to perform. And when they're done that, the absolute last thing they need is even one person, no matter how close that person might be to them.
We understand
child,
that.
They need a place to go and be alone.
We understand that because the first time that you and I ever worked together, I brought my RV out. And you have to admit, now having that opportunity, I mean, yeah, it was an RV on an independent field,
we've done everything.
but it changes the way that you do things. We had it on Cold Blooded.
Yep.
We lived at the Tennessee Brewery, between both of those productions, between Glowing and Cold Blooded, we lived at the brewery for 10 days.
Yep.
And it was. We was on Cold Blooded for 5. It was 9 days.
I guess
and
it
see,
was.
I could relate with Heath Ledger getting into that role, going back to the movie Trade that I done.
See, that's what I was gonna...
Being that serial killer, and it took us a year and a half to shoot this.
It's a long time to stay in that mindset.
So I found myself, and actually catching myself at home.
With darker thoughts.
And at work. Because I'm used to being in this character, acting this way. So I had to stop for a minute and catch myself and say, whoa, wait a minute. This is not you. That was a character, and now it's time to be you. And then you go right back on set, and
I had a
you're
similar
back in that
experience. I did Ace for Cigarette Girl.
Right.
For Mike McCarthy. Had a particular costume. A year and a half later, I think it was a Halloween party. And I thought, well, how funny would it be just put on the costume and go as the character again?
Right.
And my wife's like, do it. We don't have anything else. Right. So I threw the costume on. I walked in the bathroom to comb my hair. And the minute I looked at myself in the mirror,
it's a snap.
My posture changed. And I said something snide to my wife. She's like, excuse me? And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this character was an asshole, and I just slipped back in a year and a half later. When I saw the costume, bam, there it was again.
Well, not only does it affect actors, but it also can affect writers as well.
Absolutely.
Because a writer is so far immersed. I mean, I'm writing a feature now that's, is very, it's a serial. It's got a serial killer in it too. Well, it does have a serial killer in it too. But you get into those mind frames of sitting around, this is where my family looks at me and goes, this is why we disowned you. It's because of the dark thoughts that you have to have. I mean, this movie, I let my wife...
Thank God for paper and film.
Yeah, I let my wife and girlfriend read the first 5 pages of the script, and they were like, what in the hell is wrong with you? Because of the things that I put into the first 5 pages. In the first 5 pages of some of the things that I've actually had this character do to his victims. There's like, we got labeled.
Oh yeah.
We got labeled when we did Cold Blooded. When we released Cold Blooded, we got labeled by, I don't know who it was, but they called us the Dark Duo. So now that everybody sees us and everybody sees the films that we put out, and they go, oh, so it's going to be another dark psychological
They pretty much think
thriller.
all we will do is horror.
Right. So, not only do the actors have that, but as a writers as well, writers have to come up with stuff, and they have to come up with some, some crazy stuff too. Every little aspect can affect your well-being and the things that you do. I mean, not only is this an art, and, we look at it as an art, we look at it as entertainment, but a director, a grip, all the way down to the person that does the catering for anything, an independent set, a professional set, anything like that. It takes a toll on you.
Absolutely.
And it's so funny what Lash just said a while ago. Once he put on that costume, he got back into that character. It's funny because I was talking to some of the other guys, Stella, Noah, Logan, And they said it's funny because as soon as we get into this wardrobe, our postures change, our walk changes.
Everything goes
our
back.
And it's amazing how much just a wardrobe, looking at themselves in the mirror,
It's putting on a persona.
You've created something.
It's
It's psychological. That's a visual representation.
It's putting on a persona. When you put, you have to. When we put the gear on for Grimjack,
oh Lord,
we became a persona. We became another person.
Right.
You know, you became Grimjack. I became this other person. Darius became this other person. You know, it's a persona that comes with the aspects of it. I mean, you know, with you doing Trey was about a serial killer. You was a serial killer. With Cold Blooded, Bateman was portraying, he wasn't a serial killer, but he was portraying a serial killer. And there was times where he had told me that he had sat in his so-called man cave or whatever you want to call it, and just thought about some of the most devious things that this character, he really sat down and as like yourself, Bateman's a very faith-based person, and he had some struggles with some of the things that I had the Wills character do. And he would call me and he goes, Jamie, I don't know how I'm going to do this and make it believable. Do what?
That one scene.
The one scene. Yeah, he's like,
there was a couple one
there was a couple of one scenes in Cold Blooded that, you know, a lot of people were uncomfortable with, including the actors.
Right.
But you have to distinguish. There's a distinguishing mark. And for Todd, and sure, as long as I didn't see you and Trey, that was before I met you. You know, with Todd, you know, there would be times that he would walk away from something. He'd walk around and talk to other people. You have to break away from that cycle. I could never be a method actor.
But remember, after it was all said and done, those moments that he was most concerned with
were some of the best moments he
had. The implied
had.
homosexuality, the implied cannibalism, the implied pedophilia.
Yeah, the pedophilia.
All these things that really challenged his faith. When we were done filming, he walked up to us both and said, "Thank you for challenging me as an actor.
Right.
I needed to do that." Because he understood. Todd, Bateman, excuse me. We're filming a character. And in order for that to work, if you're going to be an actor, that character has to be that character. That character can't have the limitations of the actor behind it.
And
because
with
that's
you,
not the consistent
And
truth.
with you being in law enforcement, you know, with me growing up with family that was in law enforcement and what I did, you don't, and I tell a lot of actors this too, don't take your work home with you.
Right.
A lot of times it's hard because an actor has to take his work home with him. He has to read his script. He has to prepare. But there's a difference sometimes. You know, maybe you have your own room. Todd had his man cave.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have our offices that we can be that.
Right.
Maybe you have your own place to kind of unwind or something that would, you know.
Everyone needs their trailer.
Yeah, everyone
Whatever
needs
it might
might be. You
it
know,
might be a closet floor, but you need somewhere you can go by yourself.
You know, but for you, you know, you don't bring your police work home with you. You know, there's a lot of times that I tell people, and that my grandfather told people, he told me, he says, you know, the things that I come when somebody says, how was your day? What happened today? He's like, just work. You know, because don't want to bring up those emotions, don't want to have to relive that every time that you walk into your home because it's something.
And that's funny because with my family history being in the medical field, my father, when he was telling me a story about how, you know, when you're first a resident, when you're a medical student resident or you're a medical resident, you know, he was telling me a story about a lot of the time these, you know, new residents would go into, you know, say for example, you'll do a rotation in trauma, which is where you experience what the trauma doctors do, and you go through different departments. And he said that a lot of the time that these people will go in there and they'll see their first real major trauma, like, you know, they'll have a motorcycle accident with TBI, was it traumatic brain injury, and they, you know, or surgeons. You know, my dad did he did 2 years of surgery residency because he's an interventional radiologist. So he went through and he did that. And he said that, you know, he said he was telling me when he was doing trauma surgery residency, for about 2 weeks he had really bad nightmares about how.
Well, that's where they start losing.
Where he's in surgery, you know,
that's where med students start dropping out right there.
Yeah. He said that, you know, when he was in surgery and he was watching these things and he was just had these nightmares about, you know, this guy got his legs cut off and his arms are missing, his eyes missing.
And that goes back to what you were talking about as a cop or as a firefighter. you have to detach. You have to just kind of go cold and accept the mechanics
of
what
happens.
happens,
Right. Yeah.
versus any emotional attachment.
And it does
or anything
bring,
like that.
you know, in ways of home, it does bring itself back because, you know, my father is different because he's been a doctor for almost
Absolutely.
15
Well,
years.
it has to change.
So his personality's changed.
Well,
So-
I want to thank both of you guys, Alex.
Yep.
We see you every day.
Pretty much.
And
Pretty much.
I live in the closet, by the way. That's just how you know that.
Yeah.
Well,
And-
we have you as a producer, we have you as a student, we have you on
As an
projects,
assistant.
as an assistant.
Yeah.
I mean, you really are a man of many hats.
And Keith, it's always great. You're one of our you're one of Rising Fire's favorite actors.
Absolutely.
So, and
it's an
La-
honor.
last
Thank you.
quick question.
Yes.
What type of character do you want to do next?
I would love to do something that would challenge me. I do love the serial killer. I love it.
Well, I got one for you. There's one's going to challenge you,
the
brother.
thing about the dark personality, and
Right.
this is, I'd say this to anybody that, you know, questions us
Mhm.
as to why we always do the kinds of
Right.
films we do, or seem to always do the kind.
Right.
Those dark places are where the drama is.
Yeah.
You
With
know,
a dark character, I believe, and a character that has a dark persona to him has a lot more work than the person that's doing the comedy.
ask any major actor, what's your favorite role? And almost invariably, the answer, the villain. Because there's more range.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You can go further. As a hero figure or protagonist figure, you often you're in a box of sorts.
Right.
But the villain can go over the top.
Yeah, the protagonist has a circle that he can't go out of.
Right.
And with the villain,
It's wide open.
yeah, the world is their
just-
circle.
You get to play, and I think that's why Heath had such a
Yeah,
great
it
job
does.
on that.
Yeah.
Well, Keith, as he said, we're very, very grateful to have
Thank
you
you,
come
very
in,
honored.
that you could give
Thank
us this time.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing Quarry
Yes.
when it comes. Do you know when that
Yes.
comes out?
I don't. They're talking about,
About a year,
once it gets
probably?
picked up, the first episode may film around March of 2014. So
Okay,
they've
so
got a
that-
lot of work.
We've got a
to
little
do.
time.
So
Yeah.
the pilot
Yeah.
should be on maybe by Christmas, possibly.
Hopefully, or January at the latest.
January at the
Yes.
latest.
And we need to
Excellent.
get a copy of, if you can get us a copy,
Trey.
Trey needs to come to Black Lodge.
Yeah, you need to
Yes.
tell Antonio he needs to send you a copy for here, because
will.
that is a production that
It was
a
here in
local
Memphis.
production
I
should be
will.
done here.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
It was an honor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Alex.
Not a
Great
problem.
to see you.
And
You
we,
too.
we want to apologize to any of our viewers. Last week we had tremendous amount of technical difficulties, but we did film a show with Willie Bearden, and if you have not checked it out, it is up on our YouTube page. I would highly recommend checking it out. Willie Bearden is one of the leading filmmakers in this town and has been for nearly 40 years. So you can check that out on the on the YouTube page. YouTube In Frame Memphis. Thanks, Keith. Thank you, Alex. For Jamie, for myself. See you next week.